Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension, Season 4, Activation of Awareness, Well-Being, Intimacy, and Self-Mastery. I'm your host, Washayla Sananda, and today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Sara Connell. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. So, before we jump in, I'm going to lead us in a short alignment process just to get everybody on the same page and
Mm.
present and get us connected. So, just please begin with me by closing your eyes, tuning into your breath, deepening the breath into the belly. And as you're breathing, bring your awareness to your heart center and the light in your heart. And now feel that heart light expanding and moving up and up through your head, all the way up to the sun and the central sun. And then feel the light of the central sun coming down through the top of your head, through the spine, and then all the way down out the bottom of the spine and continuing down to the center of the earth. Tuning in now to the nurturing energy at the center, the heart of the Mother Earth, and bringing that energy up through the layers of the earth like roots, carrying liquid crystal plasma up into the body, the creative source energy coming up into the heart, joining in the heart now with the light from above, the light from the center of the earth, and the light in your heart. And just feel that heart expansion, getting clear on your presence, being fully present for this conversation today. And may you receive whatever is for your highest good from what you hear about us sharing today, and then bringing your full attention back. I hope you feel more aligned, energized, and balanced. And go ahead and open your eyes. And thank you for doing that with me. I feel more present.
I feel like I'm tingling. So I said, let's just do that forget anything I'm going to say. That was awesome.
Okay, so great note to start on. Just going to share a little bit from Sara's bio so everyone understands kind of what you're up to and where you're coming from. Sara Connell is a best-selling author and founder of Thought Leader Academy, where she helps coaches, writers, and entrepreneurs become successful published authors and in-demand speakers. She has been featured on The Oprah Winfrey Show, Good Morning America, The View, Fox Chicago, TEDx, The Today Show, and Katie Couric. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times, Forbes, Good Housekeeping, and Parenting. And her first book, Bringing in Finn, was nominated for Elle Magazine's Book of the Year. So, congratulations on all that. You are very accomplished. And I knew that the first time I talked to you. I love your energy and just your way of being in the world. So, thank you for being here. And I just want to start with like a little of your background. So, how did you start this journey of Thought Leader Academy, and what got you to where you are today?
Absolutely. I know it's funny when we hear our bios, right? Because, well, at least right now I'm in my 40s. So it's like, you condense all this stuff and, we kind of go, oh my gosh. But what's exciting is I founded Thought Leader Academy, and I'll share how I sort of got there so that as many people as possible who had the same dream I did, which was they know that they're here for a purpose, on a mission to share and change the world and get on a bigger stage, whatever that is, TV or virtual or books, to be able to do that. And what happened for me is that I'd wanted to be a writer my whole life. Like I just had that thing when I was a kid, and I read and I did journals, but I knew from reading books and watching movies that the way you knew you were allowed to be a writer or destined to be a writer is that a teacher would take you aside and tell you you're special. And that's how you knew that you were. So I had a teacher in mind that this was going to happen with, and he was a published author himself. And I'd never met a real writer that had books out and whatnot. And that didn't happen. He didn't tell me I was special, and he didn't tell me I was supposed to be a writer. And he didn't even particularly, he praised like other people in my class. And so I didn't know it. This was all unconscious, but I decided in that moment, oh, I guess I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not good enough. And I gave my power away in this significant way, to this person who, whatever. I just, that's the way I was oriented at that point in my life. So I went out and, read other people's writing as an English major, and I got a job in advertising, which was kind of like a shadow creative expression of what I wanted to be doing. And probably listeners of this will relate, when we do something that's not authentic, when we do something that's not our path, it typically doesn't go well, whether that's a relationship or a health choice or a job. And this job ended up being, unfortunately, extremely abusive. It was in like the big Me Too era. So a lot of sexual abuse and a lot of just really toxic behaviors. And it got worse and worse, as these things do, and I didn't listen to the signs, and I felt trapped. I was supporting myself. I didn't have family money, or, it was like, this was it. And I was paying my way through life. And I started to die inside. And I'm guessing a lot of us have had this, right? You're just not aligned. And the way I dealt with all the abuse that was going on is that I starved myself, and I binged, and I used a lot of destructive eating behaviors, and I was in a bad way. I was really spiraling. So I'm in the Boston airport. I'm flying back to Chicago from a meeting. I'm feeling horrible, and they're calling my flight, but I see a bookstore. And because I've always loved books, I ran in. I didn't have time to read any book. I grabbed a book randomly, got on the plane, and I read this book, and everything in my life changed. It was just a woman, not a celebrity even, sharing her story of trauma and an eating disorder and how she got better. And I vowed that night that I was going to get help. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what would happen, but I was not going to keep living the same way. And I can look back now, and I give that book credit as saving my life. I mean, it absolutely, I got support. I was able to regain some physical health and then enough self-esteem to leave the job. And that decision sort of paved the way to then pursuing the writing I always wanted to do. And that led to getting an agent, and led to Oprah and the New York Times and all these things that would have remained fantasies. None of it would have happened. And so the reason, to finally answer your question properly, that I started Thought Leader Academy is that when that happened, when I was able to break through and pursue who I feel like I'm here to be, I got, getting my own book published and getting some of those wonderful experiences, I said, this is what I'm here to do, is to make sure that others who have this calling get to do this too. And I devoted all my years of becoming a coach and all my years of becoming a writer, and created a space where, in a year, we get to do what took me 15 years for people, thank God. And it does not have to take so long, and really help people make the impact they're here to make.
Wow. I actually had chills while you were sharing that, because I could feel that moment where it could have been any book, but you picked the right book, of course, because it had to be the right book.
Yeah.
And had that transformation, and you just knew by reading that book, like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
my time. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's so interesting, because sometimes all we need is permission, like somebody to tell us, yes, you can. And like you were saying with the teacher that didn't give you
Yeah.
permission.
Right. It's like, if I'd only known now, like, why was I asking this dude permission? It's like that. Why? But that's what we do a lot, right? Like I know, because I've heard from my clients, we're not alone in thinking somehow someone needs to authorize us. And I have this agreement with my clients where we say that the calling is the sign. If the calling is to write a book, or to get on that stage, or to go out and work in the community, or start a business, or whatever it is, or become more intuitive and connect with the divine, and channel messages, whatever that calling, like, that's the sign. Like, I always want to sign that, I get the inspiration. I say, I want to sign. I still love signs. I ask for them. I love them. But the truth is, I believe now that the fact that the vision showed up to start with is the sign. That's the affirmation. That's the universe saying, yep, big magic, choosing you, Shayla, to go do this work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, because something I've found in my interactions with you, while you're not overtly spiritual in your teachings, you are very spiritual. Like, you're really one of the most spiritual teachers that I've been around, and I've been to some of your classes and things. And I love how you do incantations. You call people into their hearts. You have us, center and align and balance, and you're always, calling that for that tuning into divine presence. Tell me, I'd love to hear a little bit about what got you there. What was,
Yeah.
because, and a lot of people feel that way, but they don't share it either, with their community.
I love this so much because you're someone I admire as someone who's integrated as a teacher, right? And I made a decision a couple years ago to just not compartmentalize. So there will be people that probably come to some stuff I do and are like, no thanks. I actually just want to learn how to write a book. I don't want someone, doing deep subconscious clearing or, connecting to the light. But I know that that is intrinsically part of who I am. And so the right people, we match up, right? And so, for me, that it started early. I know you and I have talked about some very early, what for me I'll call mystical experiences. There were things that happened as a child where, you would say like I had encounters with, ghosts or, non-physical and, and I loved it. I was a kid, instead of being scared by that, I was leaning in. I wanted the room pitch black at night. Like I was like, let's do, and then my family just was very bothered and like, oh God, what is this like crazy child? Because they were very Catholic and, all that stuff. But I think then I did what a lot of people do, sort of buried it. I sort of started to stop believing. I remember going to my mom and saying, I knew that was going to happen before it happened. And she would get really angry and punish me. And it was just frightening, understandably. Like she wanted me to be rational and logical and all, but I am just not. and I embrace that in myself now, and embrace her exactly as she is and all of the good stuff. But there was a period of time where I just squashed all that down and just said, you're right. There's nothing beyond the physical world. It's just, and I became depressed. I don't know if that's been true for people you coach and teach, but I'm not surprised. My creativity down the drain, because to me, my spirituality, my energetic connection, and my creativity are twin flames. There's and when I reopened my intuition and my openness to the universe beyond my physical form, like everything opened up, in all areas of my life, and including my creativity. And to me, it's the most precious gift that we have. So I don't hide it anymore. I don't, it's just like, it's here, and I love it. And what's exciting is, a turning point for me in my 20s was realizing that spirituality is not religion. And I didn't feel called to practice Catholicism. Like it wasn't my path. And so I kind of felt like, oh, well, that's it for all of it, and it's like, not at all. So it's really exciting that it's our own to decide, and it's expansive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's beautiful. I love that you weren't scared by the ghosts that showed up.
I've been scared as an adult. I've told with Shayla experiences like more recently, if I have an interaction, I'm much more of a scaredy cat now. As a child, I was like, yes, this is great.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I know, because at my visitations, when I was visited as a child, I was terrified. Even if they were benevolent beings, I was just like, what is this? I don't know what's going on here, And,
and yours were more intense, I think, than, mine. So.
Sometimes they were, but yeah, I love that you had that openness, and obviously it was there from the beginning, your intuitive pull and your intuitive draw. And then, and I think it's so true when it's, that is our divine connection is our creativity. I mean, that is our divine light, whether it's practiced through religion or spirituality or art or any way. But if you squelch that, you're not going to be happy.
It puts the damp on our life force, I think, really. And I love, Risha, you're kind of reminding me the little bit of a paradox or fun irony is that I went back and did a master's degree, at a very academic institution for writing and creative writing, because I did want to be able to support my clients better and become a better writer. And, what I ended up creating in that program was a collection of modern ghost stories. I mean, it came right back to my roots. And I would have thought, oh, again, that was a very juicy place to compartmentalize because it was very, academic and all the stuff and the ivies climbing the walls and all the things. And, but what it led me to is even more authenticity. That's my new book is this collection of modern ghost stories. So it's really been a joy to reintegrate.
Amazing. I can't wait to read that.
Yes.
Awesome. So, yeah, thank you for sharing about your spirituality and thank you for being open about it. The more open you are, then the more open everyone else gets to be. And I also think it's really a key thing that you said is spirituality is not religion. And, in my courses, while I teach spirituality, I've had various religions. I've had Buddhists, I've had Catholics, I've had,
Yes.
all different types of people. It's okay because spirituality is spirituality,
Yeah,
regardless of how you practice.
totally.
So it's not exclusive. Okay, so one of the things I really want to dig into with you is you have five, what do you call them? Five, you help leaders overcome the top 5 blocks
Yeah.
to reach their highest impact and income. And this is really juicy stuff. So I can't wait to hear about, what are these 5 blocks that you help people with?
Yeah. So I didn't have to look any further than the mirror, obviously, to see what my block. I mean, it's very clear as I worked with myself and on myself these last decades. But what I found was fascinating and actually created a healing for me, was that the same kind of core fears and blocks that I experienced about, becoming an author or getting published or stepping on a stage or going on TV or whatever it was, were the same in some capacity as almost everyone I worked with. So I've now worked with thousands of thought leaders and writers and coaches. And it was like, in coaching, we call it the gremlin, right? You can call it the inner critic or the saboteur, different Jung, Freud, everyone has their names, but there's that aspect of ourselves that is, thinks we're not enough of something, right? And so it was like, it's kind of the gremlin's greatest hits. So they've got one album and they just like go on the road and play. And I started to realize, oh, wait, this isn't personal to me. Really, this is like so I thought I'll read them out, and maybe as I read them, people listening can sort of see, do any of these relate? And some of you listening may not experience these particular fears or blocks, but if you do, it's kind of fun to almost like take a little quiz. So I'll sort of name them and explain like a teeny bit, and then we'll talk more. But the first is some version of imposter syndrome. So typically what happens is that when we step into something bigger, starting a new business, writing a book, being on a stage, there's going to be some version of the block that, who do you think you are? You're not a writer. You're not a speaker. You're not, what are you talking about? TEDx? Like there's some version of imposter syndrome, right? That comes up in many of, even more women than men, according to studies. Then there's the worthiness block. There's some piece, there's some belief, and it says, my story isn't that important. I'm not, who's going to listen to me? Why would someone want to like hear my message or see my Instagram feed or, so that the worthiness piece, which is really interesting, can come up for many of us. And then there's just the straight up not good enough, like something about, and these all relate, of course, they're sort of, in a tangle, but I'm just not smart enough, talented enough, devoted enough, disciplined enough. I don't follow through. I didn't go to college. I did too much college. I didn't grow up with money. I grew up with too much money. Like I'm not this shape. I'm that shape. I'm this color, that color. Like we have a whole thing about we're not enough of something, right? To take up space, to share our gifts. And that leads very closely, a little, cousin of a block around our skill. I think especially for people that want to write a book or, do a big visible talk, they think, oh, I didn't major in creative writing. I didn't get a master's degree. I didn't, and I had my first book came out completely self-taught. Like I hadn't even, I was so blocked, I couldn't even go take classes. So I'm just showing everyone that 95% of the writers that I've worked with who now have published books, most of them are bestsellers, had never written a book before, never even written an article before. So that block though of I'm not a trained professional at this, whatever that crap, or an entrepreneur, gets in. And then finally, this may be one of the biggest, the block around, if I'm visible, I'll call it a visibility fear. Like if I'm visible, others will judge me, reject me. What will my family think? Also, we have centuries of evidence of a lot of women and men who have been persecuted for putting their message in the world. It has so sometimes my clients come to me and say, I don't know what's wrong with me that I'm so scared to do this. And I'm like, I'm not, why are we surprised? People have been burned at the stake. They've been shot in the streets. This is not out of our cellular DNA. Our collective trauma holds evidence that, like, if you put yourself out there, someone's going to, at the best, write a mean comment online, and worse, kill you. So it's like, so we get to do work. That's why I spend, probably at least half, probably more like 70% of the work I do with our clients is actually on clearing these blocks and healing the psyche, the energetic field, so that we can go out and do the things. Because any one of these can be a real reason. And what it shows up as is not the block. It shows up as procrastination, watching Netflix, eating chips instead of writing. It shows up as just not sending in the pitch, not finishing the chapter. Like, that's just like, it shows up as these behaviors that we feel shame about and make ourselves wrong, when really what's underneath is just these really big fears.
Wow. Yeah, it's so true. While you were speaking about that, the lineage, one of the people on the summit is Dr. Brad Nelson, and he talks about 7 generations. I think it was 7.
Yes.
Like when we experience a huge trauma, that if it's a strong enough trauma, like if it makes an emotional imprint that is really intense and really powerful, it will carry in the genes, the genetic expression for, I think, 7 generations. It might be more. Maybe
It's at least, I've heard at least 7 from the shamanic teachers I study with. And then if people are into science more than, other type of work, it's been proven in labs for at least 3 generations. And I'm guessing it is, which is they have their physical proof in neuroscientific labs of at least 3 that goes into our actual cells.
Yeah. So we might be carrying fears that we ourselves we're not related to them, but they're still blocking us. They're still there. There's still those hurdles that we get to clear from generations past.
Yes.
So what's the recipe?
What do we do with these? Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, you go to a Shayla's course and do the breath work, right? Well, so the great news is I heard Marianne Williams speak. I got to speak with her at a conference. It was very exciting one time. And she told a story, and I haven't been able to find this online anywhere, but I'm just going to give her the credit because that's who told it to me. And she said that there's a phenomenon in nature that anywhere where a poisonous plant grows, so like if you ate this plant, you would die. The antidote to the poison grows within 12 feet.
Wow.
And that just was for me, that was a mind-blowing moment, because what I took from it, energetically or symbolically, was that wherever the problem, the block, the wound, the cure is at hand. The cure is within eyesight. The cure, the solution, the whatever we need, the antidote, and is also right where we are. So we can say, oh crap, I have all the 5 of these. On any given day, I could be experiencing any of these 5, these 5 blocks, but also the antidote is here. And Shayla, you're an example of someone who delivers the elixir, right? And so the cool part is we can kind of know we're all made up differently, but what I really believe in the 3 A's of change. So the first is just awareness. So even just today going through and saying, am I experiencing any of these 5 or versions, or your own versions of these 5 in any areas of my life? Then we can check in. And then it's acceptance. Like instead of making that wrong and freaking out and go, well, now I really am going to fail, because I get into that. Like I had some limiting beliefs come up about something over the weekend. I could feel it. And I started going, oh no, if I have the limiting beliefs, now it's going to be even harder for me. And I thought, oh my gosh. So loving acceptance, like Rumi's guest house, welcome it into the heart. It's already there. It's already been in our energy. So there's no reason to like freak out, just to see it. So we bring it into the light, bring it into the heart, and then new action. And the great part is, especially today more than any time on the planet, we have access to modalities that are proven to clear these subconscious blocks. So sometimes it's just a little blip, right? It's like I'm feeling a little imposter syndrome. I'm getting ready, a client will call, like I'm getting ready to go out on that stage. It's a new stage. Oh my gosh. And it's really more just reminding each other who we are. Like with Shayla, I see you. You are destined to be here. There's at least one person in that audience that needs to hear. Sometimes it's just talking, to ourselves, or having someone who loves us and sees us just remind us of the truth. And then we just deep breath, right? And we're fine. Other times, like you said, these are genetic imprints of trauma generations back. And that's where I feel like the power tools, come in. I think breath work, like you teach. I love EFT tapping, right? So you can work with a tapping specialist or find tapping videos on YouTube. We can do NLP, we can do hypnosis. There's so many great, there's Psych K, there's EMDR, there's all these awesome mode, and I've done them all because I had a lot of blocks to clear and a lot of trauma to clear. And they've all helped me. And at different times, different ones, just like books that sort of choose us and find us. I feel like the right healer, the right teacher, the right modality shows up when we're open, and it's pretty miraculous. Like there have been things I thought like I'm stuck. Like I experienced pretty intense sexual abuse as a child, and I just for a long time felt like I'm never getting over this. Like it affected me every single day. It was really hard, and I do not have that vibration in my, it's something that happened to me. It doesn't affect me in that way. Once in a while, I'll have a little blip of something. It clears very quickly. And that was something that I just felt was with me till the end. Like there's nothing I can do. And I've used these modalities that really get into the subconscious level and other energetic levels, and we can have a healing. So it's so exciting. Like we don't ever have to stay stuck. And great coaching, straight up great coaching. The right coach asking the right question and reframing in such a way. And suddenly it's like, oh, I don't feel like I'm going to be shot if I go out on this, book tour. Like it's going to be okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that really vulnerable piece of your history. And like in you sharing that, I feel like there's hope, right? Like we don't have to be carrying old injuries with us. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that like we can just but we don't have to keep stuffing them down either, because I think that is what nurtures the blocks, is the stuffing it and not wanting to look at it. But once we have that willingness, like you did, to let it out, to let it free the stuck energy, or free the trauma, then we get to expand and step into the new version of who we want to be and who we get to be when we overcome the blocks.
I love this. And what I'm aware of too, sometimes when I listen to podcasts or, interviews, I'm like, give me something I can use right now. Cause that was a lot of, suggestions of different modalities, which I highly recommend. So one thing, if anyone's listening, that because I focus on story, how a story can save your life, and because one did for me, as I shared, a really fun game, because I like calling these games, like instead of pathologizing myself and being like, oh, I'm really messed up. And it's like, okay, let's play a game. And a fun game, if anyone wants to try it, is to do it's called But Then. So those are the magic words in this game, but then. So what you do is you tell yourself, the message that you're hearing from your inner critic or your gremlin, sort of like, oh, I've tried 3 times to write a book and I always give up on myself and I never follow through. And all my friends have these best-selling books and I'm terrible and I don't know how to write. And you're da-da-da. Okay. You let it have its voice, right? And then you pretend you're being interviewed on your favorite show. So if it's Oprah Super Soul Sunday, or it's Terry Gross on Fresh Air and NPR, or it's pick your favorite podcast host, and imagine that you've told them, like, I spent X years believing I wasn't good enough and starting and stopping, and then you have yourself tell the story as you'd like it to happen from here, but then it was 2021 and I suddenly just had this moment and I made a decision that I was going to just go for it anyway. And I ended up, walking through my imposter syndrome, and I read this great book and it, whatever. And then I just sat down and wrote, and it just flowed out of me. And 3 weeks later, I had a manuscript and I found a publisher, and I'm now here talking to you, and my book's on the bestseller list. And so, like, there's this agency we can claim, because Tony Robbins, I love, talks about our destiny will be determined by our decisions. So it's not how we feel, not what we think is possible, although all of those factors influence our actions. But if we focus on, I'm going to decide that I'm worthy. I decide that I'm enough. I decide that my story is valuable. I decide that I've actually been tapped by the universe to be the channel for this mission, and I'm going to act accordingly. It will actually dissolve, like, all that stuff. It'll dissolve the block, because it's like, well, if I'm just going to pretend I'm worthy, what would I do today? Oh, I'd sit down and write. I'm going to pretend this book will be successful. What would I do? Oh, I'm going to make a call and find out how I'm going to get it published, right? And so it's so exciting because we have that power.
Yes, we do. And, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, so much of your message is about the power of story to change lives, and we're thinking of writing your story and sharing it, but that's the power of your own story about yourself to change your own life so that you can step into that.
Totally. So you tell the new story to yourself, because so often we're telling that limiting story. I mean, I've done it, right? And so so it's like, don't make it wrong. Don't get into just like, and in fact, a good story includes challenges. So celebrate the fact that you didn't believe in yourself for 10 years and go, but then I did. And here's what happened.
And it's really, when you think of it like that and you play with it in that way, you get to choose any way of being. We get to choose, like, okay, I used to be this way, and now I'm choosing to be the person that writes the book, that gets on Oprah, that you fill in the blank, that does the TED Talk, that has the podcast, any of those things. And the only reason we don't is the blocks that you talked about.
Yeah, it's all here. And it's so, I now think mindset is like 100%, it's sort of, people are like, it's 80, Olympic athletes, 80% visualization. It's like, it's because as soon as we get on board there, we'll take the action. Yeah. Everyone listening to this is worthy of whatever desires are in your heart. That's just already the truth. We don't believe it yet, but it's the truth. So
yeah. And, that's the committed action piece, where it is, once you're committed to something, the action is next. And I think, for some people that does just flow. It's like, okay, I'm committed, I'm doing it. For other people, they need a container, some help. And I think that's where you come in, or if it's spirituality, maybe that's where I come in, that support system, because it's easy to get, distracted.
They always say, you're getting jumped in the back alley of your mind. Those gremlins are waiting with their bats and and for me, that was the key. Like, I needed to find a mentor. And there's been studies, which is really cool, that people that work with a mentor and join a community that sees a bigger vision for them will have 10 times more confidence, income, and impact. And some people would say it's like 100 times. Like, there's different various studies you can find. But what I thought was fascinating about that is I couldn't do it on my own. I just I didn't have the ability. And I'm really grateful now, because I get to meet so many wonderful people, because I'm in communities with peers and mentors who are some steps ahead of me. And I choose that on purpose, because if I get in there, I'm going to start going, well, wait, if they can do it, I probably can. And I'm going to get ideas and I'm going to get stretched and I'm going to be held accountable. So for me, it's essential, but also like the greatest joy of my life. Thank God I couldn't do it alone. Like I don't want to anyway anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, I am all about coaches and getting the coach you
Yeah.
need for the project that you want to get done. I'm, like I'm very productive. I love producing. And if I don't have someone there to help me like stay on task, I go off and do something else. I love having the support system of coaching and coaching containers, and then the other people. Yes, you meet wonderful people in those coaching containers that are so valuable. So absolutely. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you mentioned impact and income.
Yeah.
And, for some people, the impact is like, that's where it's at, that's the value, and then there's a block around the income. And I know for myself as a spiritual teacher, that's a hurdle for some people that will say, but you shouldn't get paid because you're a spiritual teacher, or people have these buts. And I had some
Yeah.
of that to get just because that was in the society. So how do what's your philosophy, or how do you guide someone through that conversation about, well, I guess it's the worthiness of having an income at
Well,
that
I
time.
love this though, because it might be personal worthiness, but also there's those collective messages that you talked about that we also get to clear. Like for each of these, there's the, do I feel worthy as a human, but maybe do I feel worthy as a woman, if I identify that way, or do I feel worthy as a spiritual practitioner? Same with artists. There's a real commitment around the starving artist, right? That's why it's funny in my programs, we make a vow of abundance, because there's been so many vows of poverty. And so we actually make with our clients, we make vows of abundance, vows of prosperity, because there was such a legacy, like as spiritual teacher and as artist,
Mhm.
of not that's the beggar's bowl idea. Like I should just take enough for today. I shouldn't. So, I mean, I think the first, back to the A's, first awareness, like, oh, I think there's some part of me that's identified with, it's not okay for me to be paid or paid a lot, for my work, whether it's as an artist, a spiritual teacher, or whoever. And then accepting that, like, yeah, I didn't get here on my own. This has been a collective idea that I took on, and maybe a personal one. And then same thing as if it's just a personal, or if it's a visibility block, we can work those same tools around building up a new belief. And so I do think taking a vow, especially in a lineage, like again, if someone's working in the healing arts or in spirituality or in visual art or literary arts, actually looking at that and saying, the key for me was, it felt greedy, it felt bad, like to want to pursue abundance or even wealth. Oh my God, like to say that word, or richness or something, right? And so what I looked at is, this is what created the turning point for me. So we'll see if it helps for you or anyone listening. I asked myself, what legacy am I leaving if I continue this belief? Because I really wasn't able to break it on my own, just for me. I wasn't. But if I said, do I want other young women, men, humans on this planet who are called to be spiritual teachers or artists, do I want them to be in lack financially? No, I would be like, absolutely not. Do I want my child, who's very psychically aware and who knows what he's going to do with those gifts, do I want him to not feel worthy of accepting financial compensation or abundance? Hell no, right? And so what got me to change the belief was saying, what really am I standing for? And as soon as I felt it that way, and this came in meditation, I said, well, okay, now I really want to change this, because it's not okay for me to have more starving artists or starving spiritual leaders, or, like that doesn't, why would I want like Wall Street bankers to make all the money? It's like that like, because more money allows us to contribute to causes, to have, there is a power in the energy of where we can vote with our checkbooks, right? So as soon as and if anyone wants some more support on this, Rachel Rogers wrote a new book this spring called We Should All Be Millionaires. And she is a fabulous, powerful woman of color who is a stand for her, it was women and women of color, that creating wealth as a form of protest. And I got really excited about that because she was making a similar point. She was saying that if we continue to under earn, undervalue, undercompensate ourselves, we create legacy of lack, sexism, oppression. And it doesn't have to be, again, people can identify with whatever gender, but it doesn't serve us to reject the money, or think it's not okay or have. So I think writing out, a great exercise I love is just write out all the reasons. Here's all the reasons I don't deserve the money. It's not okay for me to have more money. And you can write it all out. And then go use whatever modality, like we just talked about, whether it's breath work, tapping, hypnosis, whatever it might be, to really clear that out at the root. And when I realized I was doing it for the women in my programs, for my next generations, for other artists, my peers, then it's like, I will do the work.
Yeah.
I couldn't really just do it for myself, but I could do it for them.
I really, really get that. I know, like what really spoke to me in that is for me, with my overcoming that hurdle of, okay, I get to leave a legacy. I get to have a foundation of security so that I can do the work that I'm put on this planet to do.
Yes.
And, I'll still occasionally get criticized from a new follower,
Yes.
someone that will say, well, you're a spiritual teacher, you shouldn't be, getting paid. And I can look and honestly say, you know what? Part of my platform is generosity. I
Yes.
give away so much content. My YouTube's free, my summits are free,
Yes.
my podcast is free. I do emails that are free. And
Yes.
I have paid programs too,
Yes.
and I get to charge for some of my work.
Yes.
And would you rather have me go to a 9 to 5 and not do this work and just do it
Right.
on the side, and not be
Yes.
available for you?
Yes. And there was that great quote. This is Marianne Williamson again, but she said, "Your being broke serves no one." Like, it serves no one for us to be broke. It really doesn't, because like you said, we're tired, we're exhausted, we can't actually bring forth the work. And also, we can only take others as far as we go. So I know for me, I don't want women coming into my community, or men, or anyone coming in. I've just done a lot of work around the women's stuff, and women's legacy, collective beliefs, but I don't want anyone coming into my community and being like, well, I can come here and like write a great book, but I can't make any money. Like, that's not what I want to be a stand for. So it's like, oh, the more I expand, the more anyone in my energy field. So you're actually helping everyone be more prosperous, who, whether they take a free thing from you or whatever, it's actually like transmitted. So I think that's been really important. And I love now, if someone does have that reaction to something, well, your programs are really expensive. And it's like, yeah, there's all this free stuff if that's not a fit. And then there's, for people that want to invest, there's ways they can do that. And like, we are creating a legacy of abundance. So bring it on.
Yes. Yes, we are. And I would love to share with everyone that I actually, when I met Sara, I knew I wanted to step into doing a TEDx talk and write a book in 2022. And so I hired Sara as my coach to help me move into those things, because yes, I've already written a book, and yeah, I talk online and stuff, haven't done a TEDx before, but I know in my heart that the support of having a coach is what I need to have me move powerfully forward. And I share abundantly about my love of having coaches. I mean, I have multiple coaches, right? And yeah, and once, the hardest step for me was the very first coach that I hired. I was terrified because I didn't have the money in the bank. It went on charge cards. And yet I knew in my heart it's what I needed. And it is the thing that propelled me into doing all of this that I do now. So I'm so grateful that I believed in myself enough to take that step, even though it was scary. And now I've hired coaches for everything. So I'm so grateful, and I'm so excited to work with you in the coming year more, because you are amazing. And I love what you share. I love your spirituality. I love what a stand you are for your clients. So yeah, I get to have fun being in your container.
Excited.
And
Yes, and I too have many coaches now because it was so scary to do the first. And then when I saw the results, it was like, now I don't even get freaked out very much. I'm just like, done.
yeah.
Each new vision, who's my coach?
Right, right. That's how I feel too. Like it's not scary anymore because I know what's possible. And that's the end goal. And it's the thing, like, with your book writing course, it's going to be so much faster than,
Yeah,
if I were to sit down and try and write a book in my busy schedule, my busy life,
yeah.
it's just not going to get done. But if I have a coach and a container to do it in, it's going to get done. I'm confident in that. And so it's worth it.
Yes.
It's so worth it. All right. So we are coming toward the end of our time together. And I want to make sure that we tell everyone about your wonderful free gift, which is a masterclass to help you map out your book. Perfect lead in, right? And show you the book equation that can have you finish in 12 weeks. I love this.
Yes. Yes. So of course you can take longer, but we have a process. So this masterclass helps you figure out what book would you even want to write. You might know you have a book in you, but like, what's it about? And how to hone the idea, how to choose your ideal structure and outline, and then how to figure out the time. Because as you said with Shayla, we're busy. We have lots going on. We're mothers and entrepreneurs or working or taking care of parents, or there's things. So so it's really fun. It'll walk you through kind of step by step those foundational pieces that you can take to really yes yourself. And we've had people do it as fast as 8 weeks, and we've had people take a year. It's your own timeline. You can accordion the timeline, but it'll show you how to set it up.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And thank you for sharing all of this wonderful information. I feel like this was really just full of great actionable steps and also like mindset stuff to help us get over the things that are stopping us in our lives and give permission.
Yes. Yes. And so we're all going to yes ourselves, and yesing ourselves and the vision, because right, it's already in you, it's in us. So I'm really excited for everybody to, whatever that next thing is, whether it's a book or it's something else, just to clear out, just go do the breath work with Shayla and sweep out if there's any of those beliefs, and then you get to be who you're here to be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sara. I so appreciate you. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in, watching. I appreciate you all. And I'm so grateful for the connection. Be sure to grab Sara's free gift. The link will be included. And just go forward, take whatever resonated with you and let it change your life. Namaste.
Namaste.